Geoff, best part, if you ask me, afterwards, after the win yesterday, Roy says, this is a day I'll remember for a long, long time. 21 PGA Tour wins, one more than somebody else. A dig at Greg Norman, obviously, who said last week that Rory had been brainwashed by the PGA Tour. Like, it's the best. Golf is the best reality television on television right now. Prove me wrong, Geoff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the maybe like, I don't even know. I mean, I feel like Rory probably would have been better just to ignore these guys, which is like what I feel like the PGA Tour should have done in the first place. But yeah, it's fine. I mean, if he wants to take his digs, it is kind of personal for Rory, like you said. When somebody suggests you've been brainwashed because you've been playing in a place, where you've built your career, it's obviously, you can understand the personal animosity at stake here. So I don't really blame Rory, but yeah, I do feel like at this point, like, the PGA is kind of just making this a bigger story than it needs to be. Like, if they had just ignored them from the start. But hey, we're here where we are, and you know what? It doesn't matter because it's the U.S. Open this week.
Hell yeah.
And all the best players are on the PGA, and that's mainly where you're going to be rostering them anyway. So it's just another week where the PGA is probably going to be able to show its superiority, which it clearly did on Sunday with what was a pretty great final round.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, Collin, it really was the best response imaginable by the PGA Tour following like a dramatic week there. Was there something like you took away from what we saw in Canada that, you're using maybe when you're looking at Sportsbook or DFS like this week for the U.S. Open?
Yeah, the guys at the top of the board are really, really good.
Yeah.
I think there's an elite 5 or 6 guys right now that are just some of the best in the world. And yeah, to get into that class until you play your way in, I don't think we can give it a lot of credit down the board to anybody to try and win this thing. I got a couple of guys that I'm going to take a flyer on this week. But that, trying to match up what's going to happen at the Canadian Open with what's going to happen at Brookline, these are 2 totally different courses. Geoff and I think finally Geoff and I saw the scores we were kind of expecting on Sunday when Justin Rose goes out and fires a 60.
Oh God! How
should have been a 57?
Dude,
really?
What was that? It was like 4 eagles. Did he card 4 eagles? But he had a couple bogeys in there. Is that what it was?
Yes. He made double. I can't even remember.
Yeah, he made bogey on 18 in just a total choke. I mean, how can you choke and shoot 60?
Yeah.
But he totally choked it away on 18. But it still ended up, I think he still finished top 3 or top 5 this week, which is incredible. So, this court, I think, what we see at the Canadian Open, that's just the best players in the world being the best players in the world. You're going to need a specific skill set to win at Brookline this week, and that's going to be ball striking. Okay. This is not for drivers. This is for guys who can put the ball in space and not even fire at flags, but put themselves below the hole so that they're putting uphill. That's what you want this week.
All right, I'm glad you touched on that. So, Geoff, tell me what else we need to know about the country club in Brookline here, because it's the first time that this place has hosted the U.S. Open and since like the late 80s here, because it sounds like it's going to be living up to being the toughest test in golf this week. Based off the videos I've seen on Twitter, these greens look ridiculous.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a different like U.S. Open setup. I think it's not going to be necessarily like super long. I don't think. I mean, it's a 7,200 yard par 70. So for the players, I mean, it's not like overly long. I mean, we're not like 7,500 yards for a par 70. I think that in a lot of ways, this course is going to set up similar to what we saw at Pebble Beach, where they're taking a shorter classical course and they're kind of going to grow out the rough and trick it out a little bit. It's still going to be tough, like you said, but it's going to be tough in different ways. It's more about placement. I agree 100% with what Collin said. You see some of the things with the fairways. You hit it in the wrong spot in these fairways. It doesn't just roll into the thick rough. It'll roll into the water or things like that. So a lot about placement this week. I think it's going to bring a little bit more of the field in this year. Now, we say this sometimes about the U.S. Open, but it's still, those guys with the power do have a little bit of, obviously, a little bit of an advantage just because they got the higher ball flight. They're going to be able to hold the greens more. But it's going to be a really interesting setup. And I think it's going to be, again, not one where it's necessarily more of a bomb and gouge, but, you've got to know your way around the course. And ball striking, obviously, smaller greens. But I think a more nuanced all-around game could obviously contend here as well. So really excited to see how this course plays. Again, a bit of a shorter par 70 and just looking like a bit more of a placement course than necessarily pure power.
Yeah, and Geoff, I believe they're working in holes from like all 3 of the 9s that they have out there, including there's like a par 5. Here we go, the 619-yard 14th, like one of the hardest par 5s that I think.
I mean, the course has been completely rerouted, for this U.S. Open. Like they're just basically taking holes from all around. They just made an 18 holes, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no,
because
it's sweet.
It's going to be very unique in that way, right? I mean, like they're not just making the course and here's a couple bad holes to throw in, but it's like everything is unique. So it should be a really cool setup for sure.
And like DraftKings, as you guys know, we have a millionaire contest available for golf's 3rd major. So it's nearly $3 million in total prizes. That's more than the actual winner here of this event that's going to take home. $1 million to first place. It's just $15 to enter. So check it out, everybody, right now while we give you some strategy, some tips here from these guys. I mean, Collin, you kind of mentioned the type of golfer that you want to target. So can you help me out here for anyone who's trying to get this $1 million win? Like any strategy here that you recommend in DFS?
Yeah, I'm going with ball strikers. I'm going with guys who I think can put the ball on the right side of the green and roll in a few putts. That's going to be the challenge out here. You know, the 7,264 yards. These par 5s do play long, but they're going to be legitimate par 5s. There's not going to be a lot of opportunities for guys who just hit it 350, 360 to steal a stroke back here and there. That DeChambeau would be my least play of the week, but my guys that I'm going to go on are the guys who can spin it and stop it on a green, and that's going to be Will Zalatoris and Shane Lowry. I think those are the kind of guys who can get the ball into the right spots and play the course the way it's designed to be played. They won't make mistakes. They won't get themselves in trouble. Now with Zalatoris, you got to worry about the putter. But I think these are the 2 guys that I'm going to be looking at because I'm looking for ball strikers this week. Well,
it's interesting you mentioned DeChambeau because, Geoff, I've read that because we all know he won the U.S. Open at Winged Foot like a few years back. I heard that course is awfully similar to what we're going to see this week.
It is in some ways. I mean, like I think that the country club will definitely prove to be a little bit tighter, just in terms of like from the off the tee in a lot of respects. It's going to be a little bit more target golf. So it is, Gil Hanse redesigned both, but Winged Foot was a little bit more expansive in my opinion. Did have some smaller greens, but I don't know. I think that this one will definitely, and also yardage. Like you just look at pure yardage. I'm pretty sure Winged Foot played like over 7,400. So I think that from a lot of respects, the country club is going to be like a little bit more place. I think it's going to bring guys. I think like Zalatoris, probably it's a good setup for him. I like Patrick Cantlay for a lot of the same reasons we've been talking about. Last time out was great throughout the bag. We know he can ramp it up with his irons. And where's he had success? Hilton Head. He's had success at Pebble Beach. I think that just dialing down the power aspect helps a guy like Cantlay out, who's just got a more refined game. He won't be scared off by the smaller greens. He'll probably welcome it. So I know Cantlay lets us down in majors a lot, but I got to go back to him here. I think this setup is absolutely perfect for a Patrick Cantlay breakout this week.
I was going to say, his last 2 starts in non-majors, he had a solo second and a T3rd. His last 2 starts in majors, as you just mentioned, he's kind of let us down a little bit. T39.
Yeah.
And
you take out the majors this year, Patrick Cantlay has 6 top 10s and a win at the team event. Like it's a really good year that's kind of just going under the radar.
Geoff, is there anyone else whose salary stands out to you as some good value?
I mean, look, it's a major championship week. So obviously for DFS, we know what we're getting at this point. It's a deep field. You're just going to get guys down the salary chart where you're like, usually this guy's 10K. What's going on here? To me, the biggest value out there, I mean, look, we could talk about $1 million. It's Sam Burns at 8,300. This guy is just so cheap. And he's sandwiched between Fitzpatrick and Finau, who if Burns wasn't in that range, we'd probably be talking about them. But like, unfortunately, Burns is just better than these guys. I mean, he's just better than Finau and Fitzpatrick because he can actually compete. He wins. Like a T8 with Fitzpatrick and Finau, those are great. But like Sam Burns can get you a win at 8,300. That's how good he's playing. He just beat Scotty Scheffler, like the hottest player in golf a couple weeks ago. So for me, Sam Burns at 8,300. I mean, I talked about liking Cantlay at 9,200, but the fact you can get Burns at $900 less than Cantlay this week, that is just ridiculous. So that's a player you're really going to have to make a stance on this week. That is chalk. I really wouldn't mind eating because I just feel like the upside with Burns is so immense. He, to me, is the biggest value this week on the board.
Yeah, it seems like the next step in his career would be to win a major. Although T59 in strokes gained off the tee, a slight concern there.
Collin, it's the biggest concern with him, absolutely.
Yeah.
If his driver gets wild, he could. I mean, look, we only get the top 60 in ties making cuts. So
yep.
It is a small concern, but
Okay, so Collin, talk to me here. Whose salary stands out to you as some good value?
Yeah, I agree with both of those picks. I think that's really good. Finau, he just finished second yesterday at the Canadian Open. He's playing his best golf right now. When he puts it together, he's still the raw most talent on tour. Can he get you that win though? I don't know. He's only got 2 wins in his PGA Tour career ever, and he's never won outright. He's had to go through a playoff every time. That's a bit of a challenge, but I think he's certainly playing well enough and his game does set up real well. Good ball striker, but his distance is part of his, where he struggles is on the green. And that's going to be really tough because these are going to be really tough greens to putt. They slope. Everything's back to front to back. And then you see a lot of multi-level greens as well. Keeping Tony Finau out of 3 jacks is going to be what you're going to want to do this week. And let's go back to Mito Pereira. We haven't talked about him since he choked away a major. $7,800 for a guy who was on 18 and just needed to make par to win. And I can get that for $7,800.
Yeah.
That seems like some real value to me. I think he can play this course really well. He's got a complete game. So I think there's just value in a guy who I don't think ran hot. I think he's just a really good player.
Yeah.
And I think that's value down the board.
I mean, I know Reti Fowler would approve of your Tony Finau pick. It's interesting, before yesterday though, Collin, my guess is he would have faded a bit from the betting public's mind because he hasn't been a presence on marquee leaderboards this year, almost a little bit of a sleeper, but maybe he's back to the forefront of more people's minds after
It's
yesterday.
a real shame that he finished T2 for his chances this week because we probably could have got him at plus 5,000.
No, real talk.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you guys there. And since we're talking betting here, let's go over to the DK Sportsbook now because Rory is the solo favorite after his win in Canada, followed by JT. You got defending champ Jon Rahm. You got world number 1 in there, Scottie Scheffler. Which of the top tier golfers, Geoff, is worth an investment this week?
Yeah, so I mean, if we're talking just the top 3 or 4 guys, let's say the top 4 guys, we'll throw Rahm in there too. I mean, I'd probably go back to JT. I think Scheffler has cooled off enough that the iron play is good, but the rest of his game, and it's understandable. The dude won the Masters and he's won 5 times on the year, so that's okay. Scottie Scheffler gets a break from us. It really comes down to Rory or JT for me. I think it would be Thomas. Justin Thomas just looks like a guy on a mission right now. I know he just won the PGA Championship too, but I mean, there hasn't been any major championship hangover here. He's playing. He's obviously very focused. He wants to put up a win just as bad as Rory to stick it to these guys over in the Live Tour too. So I think Justin Thomas, again, sometimes gets overlooked as just a good U.S. Open player, but I think this kind of course sets up well for him. Maybe he can club down a little bit more off the tee and he doesn't have to get so wild with it. I think JT at plus 1,200 is where I would go with my money if I was going to the top. You don't necessarily have to start there, but if one of these 4 guys wins, would we really be shocked? No. So Thomas would get the vote for me.
All right, top of the board here, Collin. Who is your guy?
100% agree. For me, it's McIlroy and Thomas and then the field.
Yeah.
I think we saw that yesterday. These guys just out there on a Sunday battling with each other under pressure and playing elite golf. Scheffler just hasn't shown that same game that he did before he got to Augusta. Clearly it's there, and I think he'll be back, as a guy who wins multiple majors in the future. This is not a permanent thing, but you can only sustain that level of excellence for so long before it's just mentally and physically draining. I think that's just sort of where he is right now. Jon Rahm is just, first of all, this course doesn't set up great for him anyway, and he hasn't really been playing his best right now. So I'm going to go with Rory and JT. That Rory price, man, that win yesterday, you could have gotten Rory at a little better price before you picked up that W yesterday. And that's going to sting a little because I think I would have been on Rory in the 1,100 range, a little bit more than 1,000. So,
Geoff, who right now on Monday morning we're talking, who do you like to win this week?
Yeah, I mean, I know the PGA Tour has that social media bonus, but they should just give it all to Rory McIlroy right now
Right.
because that, like Collin said, that was they should run that on repeat. I'm gonna go off the board. I like Thomas and Rory, obviously, those are the top 2 guys. But I am going to say Patrick Cantlay. We have seen Patrick Cantlay beat these guys before. We have seen him shove off Rahm and JT down the stretch, and it wasn't that long ago. I think Cantlay can break through an event like this. And again, if you're not going to pick one of the top 3 players on the board, I think you go down. I think Cantlay is just the guy for me. So I like the setup. I like the player. I know he's let us down, but I got to go back to him one more time in a major and just see if we can hit it. So Cantlay for me, he's sitting up plus 2,000 right now. You may even get a better number on him later in the week, but that's going to be my pick.